Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is why most law firms stay stuck and how we're going to break free from that. Let's get this show started. Welcome to 2026, by the way. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. All right, Business Bros. Now she helps firm leaders ditch the chaos and scale with clarity. Now she's armed with an MBA, a CFA, she's got 20 plus years in the legal world, and she blends finance strategy and no-fluff guidance. She's the brain behind Scaling Law, the EOS system-based transforming legal practices across the country. So please welcome to the show, for the second time, Miss Brooke Lively.
Okay.
Brooke, round two.
That is awesome. I wish I could get that kind of welcome every time I go somewhere.
You can. Now all you got to do is we'll take that little clip because we're going to send you the ability to clip this stuff. And now you just have it on replay. You put it on your phone and at 5 a.m. when you got to wake up in the morning, that's what sounds off.
I got this rave kind of thing going.
That's right. That's how it works. All right, let's talk about raving now. You got something coming out here February 24th, a launch, something super incredible. What is it?
It is my, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th book, something like that, called Scaling Law. And I am so excited about it.
Now, it drops in February. And what makes this one different? Why are you so proud to get this one out? 2026, February 24th, Scaling Law. What is it all about?
Well, let me tell you why I wrote it. It goes back to our fractional CFO company. And we started out only working with law firms. We work with all kinds of companies now, but when we first started, we only worked with law firms. And we looked at our firms and we kind of divided them into 3 buckets because there was bucket A that started working with us, and those firms, their results were amazing. Everything just went high and to the right. And then we had bucket B that was making good progress. And then there was bucket C that you couldn't even tell they were working with us. And we're like, WTF, what are we doing with bucket A that we're not doing with bucket C? And, we're like, okay, we're failing bucket C somehow. So a bunch of data-driven girls, we dug in and we discovered that it wasn't us, that we were giving the same advice, we were using the same tools, all of that. We were doing the same things on our side. The difference was that bucket A was executing and bucket C wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, huh. So then we dug into that a little deeper and we discovered, with the exception of one firm, every single firm that was executing was running on EOS. And we're like, okay, there's something there. It didn't surprise us because we run on EOS. And for those of you that don't know, EOS is the entrepreneur's operating system. And it's a book written about 20 years ago by a guy named Gino Wickman. And of course, I'm talking about it. And I don't have it. It's called Traction. 1 second. Because yes, I always have one handy.
There it is.
So it's a great book called Traction. And Traction is this great framework it's just a simple set of tools to help you execute better. And we really saw that in these firms. They were executing, it was making a huge difference.
Let me hit the pause button here for a second because we're at the beginning of a year. And at the beginning of a year, everyone always gets into the vibes of what's my New Year's resolution? I'm going to put this stuff on paper. And maybe they have, a framework. Maybe they have something in front of them laid out. They know their meal plans, they know their workout schedule, whatever it is that their goal is going to do. But there are always people that by the third week of January, they fall off. I feel like you're kind of describing that here, but in an entrepreneurial sense. There's the people who actually take the action, they have it laid out, but do the work. And then the other ones that don't kind of push through. Now, I've had a hard time encouraging people that don't take action to take action. That's the most difficult step. How do you get a business to move and execute when the execution button isn't as easy as one person?
Yeah. Well, in some ways, it's easier with a team than it is with one person. And here's why. Let me tell you about a team I was working with that I just went to see in New York a couple of weeks ago. I gave them an assignment, read a book. They had to read this book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It's an awesome book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know this book. So anyway, they had to read the book. The owner of the firm was like, I never do Brooke's assignments. He knows that. And I'm like, and her team's like, we're doing this. You're doing this. And she's like, wait, like, really? And they're like, we're doing this. So you're doing this. You have to do this. And
peer pressure.
They held her feet to the fire. And then the lead attorney in the firm comes Sunday. I was going to be there on like Wednesday or Tuesday. Sunday, he's like, oh shit, I haven't read the book. And everybody else is going to read the book and I'm not going to read the book. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went on Audible really fast, got the book, and listened to it while he was doing laundry. Because he's like, I'm not going to be the one that's not going to do it.
But that's an effective way to do it. I've read a ton of books that way. You listen to them in 1.5 or 2x speed, and if you really want to comprehend, you get the Audible book where you can actually see the words and listen at the same time. I mean, You're obviously not going to get your laundry done that way, but you can definitely absorb a lot more of the book that way in a quick way. So what ended up happening? He finally goes to work. He's part of the book club now, so he's been motivated by his team to move forward.
But yeah, that's the thing. The team held each other accountable. So when you're just one person and you're like, I've got this New Year's resolution and I'm going to do this and I'm going to go to the gym every day. You're like, yeah, I'm not going to the gym today.
Mm-hmm.
There's no consequence. When you're part of a team and you don't want to let the team down and you don't, and you know that everybody else is going to show up with their homework done. And everybody else is going to get their commitments done. And you don't want to be the one that that doesn't do it. There's a little extra pressure. There's that accountability. And that makes a difference. And that's why actually it can be easier to do it as a team than it can as an individual if you have the right people on the team.
Fair enough. So what are the common mistakes that law firms end up making when they do try to scale? Maybe they're running solo, maybe they're running a team but operating like a solo, almost narcissistic way, where it's my way or the highway, and maybe they don't have that team accountability. What do you see talking to a lot of these law firms where they make that mistake? They might be a good attorney individually, but they're trying to grow and scale. How does one do that?
All right. Well, first of all, let's get rid of the narcissistic thing. So look, these people go to law school, and law school teaches you all about risk management. It teaches you about control. It teaches you not to make a decision until you know all the possible outcomes. I mean, never ask a question in court if you don't already know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to realize that what they learn in law school really hamstrings them when it comes to running a business.
Sure does.
So there's a lot that has to be overcome. And I really want to speak up in defense of lawyers about this, because a huge number of them go to law school, they get trained in all of these things that make it hard to own a business. And then they go out and they own businesses and they struggle. And yeah, they struggle. They have 3 years of it being pounded into their head.
Yeah.
Not to make fast decisions, not to make decisions without 100% of the information, not to cede control to other people. So when you say, let's build a law firm, let's scale it, they have to make fast decisions. They have to make decisions without 100% of the information. And they have to trust other people to do their jobs. And those are all really hard things to do. So the great thing about EOS is it puts some structure around all of those things that can be really scary for an attorney. It puts process in place so that you can hand off work to people, know that it'll get done the right way every time, so that your law license, you're not worried about your law license being on the line.
You know, it's funny because I never thought of it that way, the way you described it, but you're absolutely right. The attorneys do get trained in that compliance setting, in that mitigating of risk. And to run a business, it's almost like you have to have that opposite mindset. You have to take those risks. You don't know what all the outcomes are going to be. You wish you did, but you didn't. You just don't. And do you feel like entrepreneurs end up staying in that paralysis of analysis for the most part? Because we always hear about those big names. You see the big names in almost every city. They're the ones on the bus stops, or the ones on every single bus and transportation. Those are the really successful firms that take off. But there are also the individual small ones, like we were saying before. Do you think they suffer of that paralysis of analysis? And if so, what are some of those signs? I mean, we already said they need to take some risks, but what are those signs that they're ready to scale, that they're ready to go to the next level? Part of it, I'm assuming, has to be mental. The other part of it has to be, do they have teams in place, right?
Yeah. Do you have a team? Are you the only one that can do the work? I think one of my biggest questions is, do you have the work to do? Because there are attorneys out there who are awesome at going out and finding clients, and they've got more work than they know how to do. There are other people who are great at doing the work, and the thought of going out and finding a client, like, they just want to retreat into their little cave. If you don't have clients,
You don't have a business.
yeah, you're going to have to figure out the marketing thing before you're ready to scale. Don't build a company. Don't build a factory if you don't have anything to make. However, if the work is there, let's start to scale. Let's start to build the process that will allow that work to get done without you as the only decision maker, as the bottleneck of the firm. So who is that team? Is it, one attorney? Is it 5 attorneys? Is it 1 paralegal? Is it 15 paralegals? Every type of law is different. If you're in immigration, I know immigration firms that have 4 attorneys and 100 people working for the firm. So big staff to attorney ratio. I know litigation firms that are, 1 attorney to 1.5 or 2 staff members. So, what works for you? What do you need in your firm? And how are we maximizing the work that's going through to benefit both the firm and the client?
So let me take it back to scaling law, because we're definitely promoting the book here today.
Yeah.
Who's best suited to read this book? Is it somebody who's on that verge, that is acquiring clients and is on that tipping point where they're ready to scale? Or is it the other one that is like, I've been this attorney by myself for a while, I need to go out and get some clients, maybe this book will help me out? Who's it better suited for?
I think it's both of them, really. I think it is You were talking about the mental things that you have to, the mental shift that you have to make. And a lot of this book talks about that mental shift. What are the changes? How do I have to look at this differently? So I think it's for both. I think it addresses the risk. It addresses what you were taught in law school and what's different. And it has the how-to. It talks about the 6 different things that need to come into alignment in your firm. You need to have a strong vision, and not just a vision that you have, but a vision that's shared by everybody in the firm. You need to get the right people in the right seats. And right people is defined differently in every single law firm. No law firm, a right person here is not the right person there. What data do you need to be tracking? Because let's face it, guys, we got to run this on data as opposed to gut instinct.
100%.
When you're making decisions on gut instinct, you're making that decision 14 times because you wake up in the middle of the night, you're in the middle of talking to a client, you're thinking about some other decision you've already made. Like, that's just not effective.
Well, maybe as an attorney, it's a good thing, right? Because now you're going in your mind, waking up over and over, trying to analyze every single outcome until it finally comes through.
No, that is paralysis by analysis. We don't do that. We make a decision and we move on. If it was the wrong decision, we make another decision. The 4th thing that we have to do is learn how to solve problems at their root. So often we just kind of stick a Band-Aid on it, right? Here's an issue. Here's a problem. Like, this will get us through. We'll just patch it up for now. We'll shove it in the corner and we hope that it doesn't come back anytime soon. Okay. So first of all, they always come back and they always come back worse.
Yes.
In Texas, we talk about, holding it together with bubble gum and baling wire.
In California, we hold it together with duct tape. So it's okay.
Duct tape. Everybody has their own version. Why are we doing that? I had a friend's grandmother and she taught me never touch your trash twice. Why aren't we fixing the problem the first time? We've got to learn to fix the problem the first time. So much more efficient.
Well, I think the problem with that is we don't always know what the problem is. This is why reading a book like yours is so vitally important, because you don't know what you don't know. You're in business the first time. You've been taught, like we were saying earlier, for all these attorneys to avoid and mitigate risk as best they possibly can. Then they get thrusted into entrepreneurship and they're trying to grow their business and they have to take risks. There's no step-by-step on how to do that. I'm glad somebody's putting out something that's going to drastically help them take that next step.
Well, you do take the next step. And again, when we talk about mitigating risk, the 5th thing that you really have to learn how to do is put process in place, because you are never going to trust your team if you don't define how to do things. So often we talk about delegating. Delegate that out. Well, people don't really delegate, they abdicate. So they hand somebody something and say, do this. They don't explain what needs to be done. They don't explain how to do it. And they don't explain what the outcome is that they want. You're setting that poor person up for failure. So what's the process? How do we do that? And then how do we get our team to follow those processes all the time? And then the last thing we really want to do is, let's go back to that first thing I talked about, the vision that everybody shares. Now what we want to do is we want to create traction. We want to take that vision and bring it down to the ground. And we want to create traction, accountability. We want to put that vision into action, because vision without traction is really just a hallucination. So how do we create that accountability in the firm? So let's go back to that firm that I was talking about reading 5 Dysfunctions. They created that accountability. There was a due date. They all knew when it was. They knew we were going to talk about it, and they held each other accountable. And every single person showed up in that room having read that book in one form or another. And they were all prepared to discuss it. And that is where you get that execution. That is where you get everybody rowing in the same direction towards the same destination.
It's kind of, vocabulary has a lot to do with getting everybody on the same page. I always talk about lexicons. When you go into the ER, the doctors are speaking English. You might not understand what they're saying because they're speaking medical terms, but they're speaking English. And I think what you're doing when you get everybody on the same page is they start speaking that same language. They know the direction of where the company wants to go. They know based on, especially if you do that 5 functions, what the different dysfunctions are, and you can relate to them within your organization. Like it starts to accurately describe the problems that you're seeing within your organization, and you're all speaking the same language to clarify, to understand, to elaborate on those dysfunctions, which totally makes sense. And I feel like we can, what you were describing here, we can sum up in like 6 letters: SOPs and KPIs. Like if you don't have those things set up, there's going to be a big problem with getting your people to move forward, because like you said, it becomes abstract when everybody's on the same page and they know exactly how to do something. They know exactly what the outcome is. All of a sudden it becomes delegation, and it's a lot easier to move forward.
Yeah. So I want to add one thing to that, because you're totally right. It's SOPs, it's KPIs, and it's culture.
Yes.
And you were talking about culture because you were talking about using the same language. So it's having those right people in the right seats. It's talking the same talk. It's, that kind of shorthand. Doctors use doctor language. They use medical terms. Companies, any kind of companies, whether it's a law firm or a marketing agency or a widget maker, companies with a strong culture build their own shorthand. Mm-hmm. And using that, building that culture, having that shorthand, having everybody really on the same page makes an enormous difference.
Yeah, all of a sudden you guys are finishing each other's, sandwiches or sentences, whatever you want to go with in there. But
really,
yeah, but that's what it comes down to, right? Like, it's funny. You almost dread going to work a lot of places, but there's some organizations where you almost dread coming home because you have so much fun at the organization that you're at. Those people become your family. You know what they're thinking. You know what's going on in their outside life, and you're all working together at this place with this objective to move forward. Those companies are the ones that tend to really thrive and really build something, not just for the ownership, but for the people that are within that organization. And that's really what makes that company grow, is because the people in there feel like, as a human being, you want to get paid. Yeah, you want your paycheck, but you also want to feel like you're doing something that means something, that's gonna elevate you, elevate the people around you, and it gives you that motivation to go forward.
Yeah, there's a great expression: a rising tide lifts all boats. So the better the company does, the better each individual is going to do. But especially with the younger people in the workforce, they're much more concerned about quality of life. They're concerned about purpose, and are they fulfilled in what they're doing? A boomer was going to be much more concerned about the paycheck, less concerned about personal fulfillment. As you go down the age range, personal fulfillment becomes more important than straight paycheck or the balance, the importance changes. And so if we're not building companies that have a great culture, those younger employees aren't going to want to work for us.
True.
They're going to find somewhere else.
Now, speaking of success, when lawyers are going through school and they're going through all this stress and they're worried about, passing the bar exam, they're doing this like doctors because they're going to make a substantial income, hopefully, when they get into their profession, theoretically, right? And they might deal with all this stress, but that idea of success will vary with different firms. Once they get there, they start acquiring clients, and that might feel successful, but then they got student loans, and so they got to start making some more money, and then they become a little more profitable, and then they maybe have a partnership or two, and then it starts to grow. And how do you separate between the attorneys or the law firms that become profitable, thriving, versus the rest that kind of just keep grinding? What is that success factor, and how can they minimize the stress that they're already carrying with the profession to maximize that culture that we were talking about so they can enjoy the job that they're doing?
Yeah, so there is a lot of stress in the legal industry. In fact, of all industries, it is the one that has the highest rate of alcoholism and drug abuse.
And not just for the clients.
Just saying, if you hire an attorney, you're driving them to the bottle, but whatever. I think that there are a couple of things. The first is I look at profit a little differently. I don't think profit is always about cash. Profit can be about money. It can also be about time, and it can be about reputation. So, I've had clients before who defined profit as the ability to go to their children's swim lesson at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. I have a client in Buffalo that is doing EOS. He has always had a lot of time with his family. He coaches his girls' ice hockey teams. He is absolutely amazing. But one of the things that he did was he used to be on the ice with his phone, checking email the whole time. On the ice while he's coaching.
Present but not present.
Present but not present. With EOS, he's able to leave that phone like in the locker room. So he doesn't bring it on the ice anymore. That's reputational profit. Like, his children know that he is truly present with them. He is 100% there. He's not just giving them time. He's giving 100% of himself. So his profit has gone up immeasurably there. So what kind of profit do you want? So let's start with defining profit.
Yeah, it's funny when you really think about it. You acquire, or you go into business trying to acquire, as much income as you possibly can. But at the end of the day, what's it for? I've talked to a lot of different people who have made a lot of money in business, and some of them are like, I live a pretty modest life. I live in a house. I do this. I got to a certain income level, and then after that, it was just, I guess it's like Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump has one of my favorite lines. There's only so much money a man needs. After that, it's just for showing off, or at least that's what Mama said. So, but I agree with you 100%. Money really, aside from toys and fun stuff like that, the only thing you can really buy you is time. And that time it allows you to do whatever it is that you want to do. And I as my kids are now older teenagers, and they're getting their driver's license and they're off doing their thing, you look back and you're like, man, I was so glad I was there for all the soccer games and all the practices, and I was able to see all the plays and go to all the school functions. And you're absolutely right. There's a dollar amount success, but then there's that life value of success. And if you're not creating memories with the money, then what do you have it for?
Right. So let's just start there. Like, let's define profit for you. And, there is a place where maybe you don't take as much home and you give more to your team because you want them to have that same kind of time profit and reputational profit with their friends, with their family. And now I forgot what the first part of the question was. Where were we? What were we doing?
Well, we're getting close to wrap up, so I want to make sure we get your information out. Well, because we've talked a lot about the different aspects of business. I mean, what it takes to be an attorney first and foremost, the stress level that it takes. We talked about the stress on trying to grow a business if you don't have the right mindset. We talked about SOPs, KPIs, and company culture to try to level this all up. And unfortunately, this is only like a 30-minute podcast. But if I wanted more information on how I could actually scale my business, if I'm in law and I want to get this to that next level, how can we do that? I wish somebody had written a book or is releasing a book here soon
Yeah, there might be a book. It might be called Scaling Law. And yeah, so the book comes out February 24th. Our website will launch about the same time, scalinglaw.com. And that's a great place to go find out more about us and what we do and how we help law firms become more profitable. In the meantime, if you want to find me, my email is brooke@cathcap.com. You can also find me on social media.
And real quick, Brooke, before we head out, because, we talked a lot about, what it takes to be an attorney. We talked a lot about the scaling aspect of it, and we do got the book launch, but you do have CathCap. Can you tell me a little bit about that real quick and why, the book kind of leads into really the services that you offer there?
Yeah, so CathCap helps companies grow and scale profitably. And we do this by serving as a fractional CFO. So if you think about it, the vast majority of the US economy, something like 80% of the US economy runs on small businesses. And small businesses don't have access generally to the $250,000 a year CFOs, the ones that have the strategy to help them grow and scale. And so what we do is we let people access those CFOs, that the strategy, that really high level thinking for a fraction of the price.
Ladies and gentlemen, look, it comes down to this. You're in business and you're trying to grow your company. And there are different levels to this. The person that you are when you first get started from probably like zero to 200, 250,000, that's one type of individual. And then to get to that next level over 250 to maybe $1 million, 2 million, that's a different type of individual. And that's a different type of company altogether. And then to go from that 1 million marker to that 10 million marker, that's a whole different ballgame. And each of them has a different level that you need to understand, a different dynamic, a different group, a different type of way that you operate your business. And I know it might seem like a lot, but if you guys can head over to scalinglaw.com, especially if you're in the law space, there's nice step-by-step books to help you get your company from where you are today to where you actually want it to be, that big company with that company culture that we talked about. And Brooke and her team are helping you guys get there. At the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know, and your company is growing, but you're gonna need help. You can't do it alone. You can have a lifestyle business alone. But if you want to grow a big company, you need to have a team in place to make sure you are doing the right things so that maybe when there's a book you should read, your team can hold you accountable to read it. So, Brooke, thank you very much for being on the program. Any final thoughts before we head out today?
I just want to add something to what you just said. What got you here won't get you there.
100%.
You got to keep growing.
100%. Brooke, thank you very much for being on the program today. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, scalinglaw.com is a website. Book launches on February 24th. So I don't know when you're listening to this, but Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026. And come February, it's time for your law company to start scaling. Go to scalinglaw.com, pick up the book. Brooke, thank you very much for being on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast. But not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started today.